And that bell you've just been hearing dates from the 1380s. So that's a nice thing to hear. And a very good early New Year's Eve morning to you all, ladies and gents. I'm up and out at the crack of dawn this morning, and we're at the Church of St Mary Magdalene, East Ham, once Essex, now London. And this church, large parts of it are Norman in origin, 12th century, and then there's 13th and 14th century additions, so it's very old and quite original. It has some very special features, this church, as we're going to see as we go around the exterior, and we'll see from the inside. This is a revisit because I was here on Christmas Eve night for the midnight mass. I was able to take some photos then, but being so busy it was a bit difficult, so yeah. Sorry about that. One of the church wardens and his wife just went in, so I had to pause you for a minute. Yeah, it's got a lot of original features, this church, one of which you've just heard. If you watch part 2, I'll show you it now while we're here, because it is interesting. There's a very interesting grave over here. It is just here, Titanic related, in loving memory of Lily, beloved daughter of RJ and P.S. Rogers. Now remember that name, RJ and P.S. Rogers, who passed away December the 9th, 1911, aged 23. This is where it gets interesting. Also, Edward James William, son of the above, that's of RJ and P.S. Rogers, aged 31 years. And you've got also Edward Henry Bagley, nephew of the above, which is RJ and P.S. Rogers, aged 33, who lost their lives in the Titanic disaster, April the 15th, 1912. So that's a very interesting part. And below that you've also got in loving memory of Robert Edward Rogers, who died November the 12th, 1879, aged 8 weeks. Also Mary Ann Rogers, who died June the 11th, 1887, aged 5 years. So that's your Titanic victims. And we shall go in a minute and let you get a lovely view of this church. If you watch part 2, as I was saying, you'll come back and you'll capture it in its Christmas mode, which is lovely, very, very nice. It's a very short video followed by photos, but the photos are set to the organ of this church playing, and the noise and hustle and bustle of our church should sound and would have sounded years ago. I mean, our church's midnight mass and things like that now are their most busiest times. And we go around the side, which is the main way into the church nowadays. That's the entrance into its bell tower. Carry on with our exterior views. I should get a smidge muddy. On my feet will anyway, on my trainers. Oh. It rained while I was inside the church quite heavily. It's stopped now though. Don't know if that's probably locked, I should imagine. Yeah, them things are well locked. Look, they're interesting. What you're going to see now is one of them, the oldest part of the church, which is its apse. Here is the priest's door. In times of old, the priest could have entered the church in the most sacred area without having to process down the nave or the aisle. So that's why there's a priest's door there. This is its oldest part, and this is the apse, the rounded part. That's its only stained glass window just there, which you'll see from the inside, which looks really nice, I must admit. But if we go over here, we get a bit of a better view. And this I found to be the most interesting and fascinating part. I really did. Bottom part of it's been bricked up in more recent times, but as you will see from the tiny little window on the inside when we look through there, this is the anchorite's cell. In medieval times, an anchorite or an anchoress was a highly religious person, what we may even call a religious zealot sometimes, who would be walled up inside a cell with just a little opening to allow for food and drink to be passed in and waste to be passed out, and that's where they'd spend the rest of their life, in prayer and devoting themselves to God. And this church had its own anchorite, and this is the anchorite's cell, which you'll see on the inside. This is bell tower. As you saw in our opening scenes, it has some very interesting graves and tombstones in this one. The church is closed now. I've been to the church service. I was kindly allowed to take a much more comprehensive video inside. In part 2 you'll see, which is a shorter video with pictures, you'll see and catch and hear the church in its Christmas mode, which was lovely, absolutely lovely. And this is basically to take in what we missed, because it was dark. The church was lit by candlelight. You wouldn't have captured up on the wall what I've been able to show you today. I shall say no more of that and then let you ladies and gents see it. There's our Titanic victims' grave just there. Whether their bodies were recovered and buried here, or it is just a memorial to them, I do not know. So that we'll find out. There's a substantial crack down the wall here which has been filled, one of its buttresses. '14th century mostly, the bell tower, made from ragstone. Anyway, you ladies and gents will now join me inside this lovely old church. So off we go. Lovely organ, it's lovely to hear. To the glory of God and the beloved memory of Vincent Cock-Boggington, chaplain of Forest Churches, 1918. So, and that's where it would have been hand pumped in its original day. Some poor fellow would have had to stand there and have a pump there. This is the font. It's to hand the gift of Sir Richard Higham, right. Anno Domini 1639. This church is a stunning one. It has some lovely features inside. That's okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me know, thank you. There are some very special features in this church. The memorials I have photographed separately, so you can just check the details of those for any that you may wish to see. This beautiful pool. Well, the whole church is just beautiful, isn't it, really? So. And the very special thing is up here. The Cistercian wall paintings which survive. That's amazing. Sorry. Thank you. Let me go above there, look. There's more of the painting up there. I just noticed. There is the anchorite cell just in there, which I will show you. This church had an anchorite, and that is the cell which we saw the door of on the outside. It's very small. They were walled up inside, weren't they, anchorites and anchoresses in those days. That's fascinating. And St. Mary Magdalene, for whom the church is named. Over there you have a double pincerna, and that there is the priest's door, for where the priest would go and come. Here's its stained glass. Its original stained glass, as I said, was blown out in the Second World War, unfortunately. But this is lovely. Sorry. And you've got more of the paintings up there. And it's apse. Apse is very much Byzantine and the Norman era. And think of the history that this church has seen since its creation. We're now standing in the oldest part of the church. It's actually an honour to come and see something like this. And here is a tomb, quite an impressive one as well. And more of the painting, look, you can see just there. You think after the Reformation this would have all been lime washed, and one of the kind gentlemen just told me they had mosaic tiles at one point, but they were stripped away. All our churches would have been brightly coloured before Henry VIII got his hands on them. It's the joint of the carpet. I thought it was going to fall then. Look, and here's the monument, just here. I'll try and take a picture. There's this double pincerna there, look, which is quite a good survivor. Oh look, there's more of the painting, I didn't notice that. That would have had iron railings around it at one point. What a beautiful church this is, it really is lovely. Picture. Ouch, that was my knee. Don't know if you heard that. There's the processional cross, which they take down the aisle, which is a beautiful thing. St. Mary Magdalene there. That's kind. A fellow called Robert's just given us a guide so we can learn more about the church. Right, hope you all enjoyed that one. There are plenty of photos as well, so you've got plenty to look at. Over here, oh I didn't show you this bit over here, did I? Which I shall do now, quickly. Just over here. Look, it's the, where you light candles, but that's a holy water stoop, that would have been. And if you're interested in any of the memorials, do see the pictures that I've taken, so which you may enjoy. Here we are. Thank you for watching. And now for our historical look back. And this is the earliest image I can find of the church, 1785. And if you can, well, you'll notice with later images and what we've seen in our tour that its churchyard here is much more sparsely populated. There's a lot more gravestones in the later times, shall we say. If you look at the church tower, you'll notice the crenellations. Keep those in mind for a minute. But also look over to the right and you'll see a horse and carriage going by in the street outside. Our next image is late 18th, early 19th century, and why I told you to keep the crenellations in mind is in this image they're not there. Whether that's a bit of artistic license or repairs ongoing and things and whatnot over the years, which did happen, I don't know. But this is late 18th, early 19th century. And the apse, as you can see, that's one of the few things that really hasn't changed. And here we are into photography. This is the Victorian era. And now you'll see what I mean about the graveyard being much more populated than our first image that we started off with. Crenellations are back, so that's interesting to see. The beautiful old apse and the sanctuary, which are the oldest parts of the church. I like this. This is an old postcard from the early 20th century, colourised back in those days. But it shows you the church, of course, and its graveyard, with some of its gravestones looking very clean and new, which they won't look nowadays. And this is from the church's own website, this image and the one you're going to see next, so credit to them for that. But this is a plan of the church. And if you look over to the right, where I've got the arrow, that points to the anchorite's cell, which we covered in our tour, looking from the inside and then looking at it locked up from the outside. But here is the anchorite's cell unlocked, and credit to the church website for this image. So yeah, this is the tiny little cell that the anchorite would have lived in. Most notable of all was St Julian of Norwich, it says on the church website, so that's a very interesting point, isn't it? And here's a drawing by T. White, which is from our own time, but it shows the interior of the church, and I thought this was really nicely done, so I thought I'd end us off with that. Hope you've all enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and now go to part 2 if you want to see the church in Christmas mode.